The story begins as we learn that the so-called gods got bored in their divine recliners and descended to the world. So they decided to live among humans and slapped seals on their own powers to cosplay as regular people. The only thing they can give humans is their blessing, which grants them the power to fight monsters, and the people who receive it become their familia. In the present, we see a boy named Bell, the lone, underpaid intern of the Hestia Familia, and he pathetically runs away from a monster, but he reaches a dead end. He thinks it's all over for him, but a girl named Eyes suddenly comes to his rescue, cutting the beast in half. After that, Bell walks through the town covered in his own bad decisions, and he attracts everyone's attention because he looks like someone who took on more than he could handle. He meets with a guild officer named Aina, who scolds him for going to the 5th floor, and she thinks he's lucky to be alive because a lot of level 1 adventurers wouldn't have survived a Minotaur attack. He asks her about Eyes, and Aina sees that he's blushing, so she realizes that he's in love. She mentions how Eyes is part of the Loki Familia, and she's also one of the strongest swordsmen in the country. But Belle wants to know if she has someone special. So Aina notes that she hasn't heard anything about it, but it will still be difficult for him to get Eyes to like him. But she tells him to cheer up and trade the gems he earned for money. He prepares to leave, but she mentions how girls like boys who can protect them, so Eyes might like him back if he works hard to get stronger. Belle thinks about how his grandfather told him he needs to pick up women in the dungeon because if he can save them, she'll be grateful to him and they'll get to know each other. He realizes that his grandfather's advice is true, but it's the opposite for him since he's the one who was saved. Belle returns to his house where Hestia hugs him, and she's worried when he tells her about the monster that attacked him, but he promises that he won't leave her alone. She shows him potatoes that she got from working at the food stand, but she mentions how she still hasn't had any luck finding people who want to join her familia, thinking it's because she isn't a popular goddess. She wishes she could at least use her divine powers, but there's a rule that she can't use them in the lower world, and she apologizes for making him form a contract with her since she's a useless goddess. But he tells her their familia is just getting started, and he notes that once they survive the hard part, things will become easier for them. She mentions that it's time to upgrade his status, so she starts to cast a spell on his back as she notes that his idea of picking up girls in the dungeon won't work. She knows he likes Eyes, but she thinks a strong girl like her must already have a man in her life, so she tells him to forget about her. She mentions that he might have already met the girl he's supposed to be with, so he should pay attention to what's in front of him, and he checks his stats. But he's disappointed that his magic power is still 0. He sees something written in the skill section, but Hestia tells him it's nothing, explaining that there are marks there because her hand slipped. But she knows that he actually unlocked a skill, which will make him level up quicker as long as he has strong feelings about it. She's happy that he finally unlocked a skill, but she's also annoyed that it was someone else who changed him because she always had her eyes on him. The next day, Belle wakes up and sees Hestia sleeping on top of him, but he's embarrassed seeing her chest, so he decides to head out. While walking through the town, he senses someone watching him, but he's interrupted by a girl named Sayer, who gives him a magic stone that he dropped. She hears his stomach growling, so she gives him her breakfast, but he refuses to take it. She assures him it's fine because she'll have a lot to eat when the restaurant opens, but she makes him promise to eat there once he gets back. Belle goes to the dungeon, where he eliminates a group of monsters, but as he's collecting the stones they dropped, he wonders how much it will take for him to catch up to Eyes. Another group of monsters appears, and he thinks about running away, but he remembers Eyes and decides to fight them. As he returns home, he's shocked to see how much stronger he's become, and he asks Hestia why he's growing so much, but she ignores him and leaves. She thinks about how even though Belle has her by his side, he got stronger after he met Eyes, which means he really likes her. Meanwhile, Belle goes to the restaurant where Circea works, and the chef named Mia gives him food, but he's worried that it might cost a lot since he's saving for his familia. Seer mentions how she likes meeting new people, so it's the perfect place for her to work, because all kinds of people come there. Ais arrives with her familiar members, which shocks Belle, and he's stunned by how beautiful she looks. Seer tells him they're regular customers, and she thinks it's because their god likes the place, so he realizes that he can see Ais if he comes there. One of the Loki familiar members named Beta asks Ais to tell everyone how she defeated a Minotaur on the 5th floor, where she saved a kid who ran away after getting covered in blood. Ais thinks they can't blame him for acting like that. And another familiar member named Rivera tells Beta to be ashamed because it's their fault for letting the Minotaur escape from the 17th floor. He thinks he can't be blamed for telling the truth, and he mentions how even Ais won't allow such a coward to stand by her. But Belle can't bear to hear anymore, so he runs away. He sees him and tries to catch up to him, but she realizes that he's already gone, wondering if he was the boy she saved. Belle goes to the dungeon, where a frog monster eats him up, but he destroys it from the inside. He thinks about how he wishes for things to happen without doing anything, but he knows that he needs to work hard to stand by Ais' side, so he decides to fight any monster that stands in his way. As he returns home, Hestia is shocked to see how injured he is, but he just tells her he wants to get stronger, and she's glad that he's putting in the work. Hestia uses her spell to check Bel's stats again, and she can't believe how strong he has become, realizing it's because of his unique skill, which even she hasn't heard of. She can't tell him about it because the other gods might be listening, but she knows that he's been working hard to get stronger, so she decides to tell him about his stats. He can't believe how much he has improved, and she thinks he has talent, so he'll continue to get stronger. She mentions that she respects his resolve, so she decides to lend her powers to him, but she makes him promise to stop being reckless. So he assures her that he won't leave her, which makes her relieved, and she notes that she'll be gone for a few days. He goes back to the restaurant where he apologizes for running away and pays the money he owes them. Mia tells him if he didn't come back, she was planning on going after him, but Seer is glad that he returned, and she knows that he's going to the dungeon, so she made lunch for him. He refuses to accept it, but she forces him to take it, and Mia tells him to thank her because she was the one who persuaded everyone there to forgive him. Mia mentions that there's no use for an adventurer to pretend to be something he isn't, and she advises him to put all his energy into surviving. She notes that it doesn't matter if he feels pathetic or if people laugh at him, because what's important is that he comes back alive. Meanwhile, Hestia is at a party for the gods, where she tries to steal food, but another goddess named Freya interrupts her. Loki joins them as well, and Hestia asks her if Ais is seeing someone, but she notes that Ais is her favorite, so she'll destroy anyone who comes after her. Freya mentions how it's been a while since she saw Loki in a dress, and she notes that she heard Hestia was coming, so she decided to go there just to laugh at her because Hestia can't even afford a dress. But she tells Loki that everyone will laugh at her flat chest, which makes her angry, so she pinches Hestia's cheeks. A god named Hephaestus interrupts Hestia, who's happy to see her, but she tells Hestia she won't lend her money again, reminding her how she used to freeload off of her familiar. And when they kicked her out, she came crying back since she was broke. But Hestia explains that things have changed because she now has her own familia. Freya decides to leave because she has done what she came to do, and she mentions that she had fun at the party. After she leaves, Hestia bows before Hephaestus and asks her to make a weapon for a bill, but she refuses her request and tells her to save up the required money. But Hestia continues to follow her after they leave the party and keeps begging her to grant her request. Meanwhile, Bel is looking at a dagger, but he's interrupted by a god named Miak, and Bel asks him why he didn't go to the banquet of the gods. So, he explains that he was invited, but he's been busy preparing goods since his familia is so small. He gives Bel 2 vials and he refuses to accept them, but Miak forces him to take them because it's his way of asking Bel to keep helping his familia. We return to Hestia as Hephaestus asks her why she's so desperate for her help. So she explains that she wants to support Bel, who needs to walk a dangerous path to reach his goal. She notes that he's always there for her, but she feels bad since she can't help him because she can't even do things a normal god should be able to do. Hephaestus decides to help her, but she tells Hestia she'll still need to pay the fees even if it takes her centuries, asking her what kind of weapon Bel uses. So she realizes that Hephaestus plans to make the weapon herself, which excites Hestia because she's known as the divine smith in heaven. Hephaestus reminds her that she can't use her divine powers because they aren't in heaven, but Hestia isn't worried about it. Hephaestus opens a secret door, and as she prepares to make the weapon, she tells Hestia to help her. In the city, a waiter from the restaurant named Anya suddenly gives a wallet to Bel and tells him to give it to Seer, so he becomes confused. Another waiter named Ryu tells her she needs to give a better explanation to Bel, so she explains that she's asking him to give the wallet to Seer because she forgot it while going to Monsterphilia. He has no idea what Monsterphilia is, so they explain that it's a huge event hosted by the Ganesha Familia where they take over the Colosseum for the day and tame monsters brought in from the dungeon. Meanwhile, Hephaestus finishes making the weapon, which makes Hestia happy, but Hephaestus tells her she shouldn't forget to pay for it. We see Freya telling Loki that she's after the child of another familia, but she suddenly leaves without giving Loki details, which makes her wonder if something's wrong. Bel starts looking for Seer, but he runs into Hestia, who invites him to go on a date with her. He tells her how he was asked to look for a person, but she notes that they can look for them while they're on a date, and they buy crepes from a shop. She offers to feed him with her hands, but he refuses to take her food and tells her to eat his crepe instead, so she takes a bite. He notices cream on her mouth, and he tries to clean it up, but his whole body turns red. In the Colosseum, Freya frees a monster, which goes outside and starts attacking Hestia. They both try to run away, but it catches up to them, and it's about to grab her, but Bel attacks it even though he's scared. He tries to stab it with his knife, but it breaks into pieces and the monster sends him flying into a wall. It prepares to finish him off, but he suddenly throws a bomb, which blinds the monster with a flash of light, and he runs away with Hestia. But he knows that he can't protect her, so he pushes her past a door and closes it, telling her to get away while he holds it off. Bel thinks about the day when he learned that his grandfather had been killed by a monster, and they couldn't even find his body because it had fallen into a deep valley. He decided to follow in his grandfather's footsteps by becoming an adventurer, but he was rejected by everyone since he looked weak. But he refused to give up and eventually ran into Hestia, who invited him into her familia. In the present, the god Ganesha learns that 9 monsters have escaped, so he orders his men to ask for help from other families because they can't stop the monsters on their own. They think that asking for help from others will humiliate them in front of everyone, but he notes that they should worry about the people's safety before anything else. Meanwhile, Belle continues to struggle against the monster, and Hestia remembers how Hephaestus told her about the writing she carved on the weapon. She explains that the weapon will come alive the moment Belle grabs it, and it will continue growing with him. So Hestia realizes that she needs to give it to him. The monster is about to finish Belle off, which makes him remember the time Eyes saved him from the Minotaur. But he knows that she isn't coming to his rescue, and he's glad because he doesn't want her to see him in such a condition. Near the Colosseum, a girl explains the situation to Aina, who doesn't think they'll find any adventurers there. But she sees Eyes, who decides to help them, and she immediately defeats one of the monsters. Aina mentions that they also asked other adventurers for help, but a few monsters are still at large. So Eyes goes to look for them. Meanwhile, the monster is about to end Belle's life, but it gets distracted as Hestia arrives and it tries to attack her. So Belle dives to save her, but he doesn't understand why she came back, so she explains that she'll never leave him behind, reminding him of his promise that he won't leave her. He explains that with the way things are going, both of them will end up dead, but she tells him he shouldn't give up so easily. The monster continues coming after them, so Belle picks her up and runs away, and she knows they're in trouble, but she's still happy that he's carrying her. They find a hiding spot, but Belle knows that the monster will eventually find them, and Hestia mentions that she has a plan, telling him she'll upgrade his status so that he can defeat it. He thinks it's impossible because he won't be able to defeat it even if he gets stronger, but she mentions that she believes in him and she gives him his new knife. In the city, Eyes defeats all the monsters, but she learns that there's still one left, and even the Ganesha Familia's strike forces couldn't find it. Hestia starts to upgrade Belle's status, and she's surprised by how much stronger he's become, but the monster finds them, so she quickly finishes her spell. She sees that Belle is afraid, so she calms him down, and he rushes towards the monster, which tries to smash him to the ground, but he dodges the attack. It attacks him with its chain, but he blocks it with his knife, breaking the chain into pieces, and Haya explains how the weapon will get stronger as he grows, so he needs to believe in himself. He jumps in the air and attacks the monster from above, which breaks its armor, but it still keeps attacking him. So he rushes forward and stabs its chest, killing it in an instant, and its body turns to dust. Everyone starts to applaud him, while Eyes watches him with the crowd, and she decides to leave since the monster has been defeated. Hestia suddenly falls unconscious, so he takes her to the restaurant, where he thanks Seer for letting Hestia rest there. Seer realizes that he got involved because she forgot her wallet, so she apologizes for getting him into trouble, but he assures her that it wasn't her fault. She notes that she has fallen in love with him after seeing him fight, which makes him blush, but he thinks she's just making fun of him. Hestia wakes up, and Belle tells her how the other monsters have also been defeated thanks to Eyes, but he asks her where she got the knife. So she reveals that Hephaestus has made it for her, and he's surprised hearing this because he knows that her weapons are expensive. Hestia knows that he's been looking at the weapon shop, but he can't afford the items since they're expensive. So she made arrangements with Hephaestus because she wants to help him get stronger, which makes him cry. In the dungeon, we see a child collecting gems, but a man yells at her for being slow, telling her she's useless as a supporter, but he thinks he can still use her as a decoy if he gets surrounded by monsters. We return to Belle as he tells Aina to grant him access to the 7th floor, which shocks her because he almost died on the 5th floor, but he assures her that he's gotten stronger. He reveals that several of his status levels have gone up to E, but she doesn't believe him, so he shows his back to her, and she realizes that he's telling the truth. She knows that she can't refuse him entry to the 7th floor because his status scores have improved, but she notes that there's still a problem and tells him to meet her the next day. But when he sees her, he's surprised by how different she looks, and she wonders if he's excited to go shopping with her. She asks him if he has anything to say about her outfit, which makes him blush, and he notes that she looks younger than usual. After that, Aina takes him to the Hephaestus Familia's shop called Babel, which shocks him because he doesn't have the money to shop there, but she forces him